The atmosphere inside the brightly lit studio was supposed to be cheerful and controlled, the kind of polished calm that morning television thrives on, but from the very first moments of the interview there was a strange tension hanging in the air. Mark Wahlberg sat across from Michael Strahan with a polite smile that never quite reached his eyes. He had come to promote his latest project, expecting the usual mix of light banter, career reflection, and upbeat questions, yet something about the tone of the conversation felt off to him. The questions began innocently enough, touching on his long career, his transition from music to film, and his reputation as a disciplined, fitness-focused actor. Still, beneath the surface, Wahlberg sensed an edge, as if the discussion was being steered toward more personal and provocative territory. As the interview progressed, Strahan shifted gears, bringing up Wahlberg's past controversies and moments from earlier in his life that the actor has repeatedly said he has worked hard to move beyond. While such topics were not new to Wahlberg, the way they were framed seemed to catch him off guard. The questions were sharper, less reflective, and more accusatory in tone, hinting that his success had not fully erased the mistakes of his youth. Wahlberg tried at first to respond calmly, choosing his words carefully, emphasizing growth, accountability, and the importance of learning from past actions. His voice remained measured, but his posture stiffened, and the smile he had worn at the beginning faded into a tight, controlled expression. The tension became unmistakable when Strahan pressed further, suggesting that Wahlberg's public image as a reformed and disciplined figure might be more calculated than genuine. This implication struck a nerve. Wahlberg leaned forward slightly, his eyes locking onto Strahan's, and responded with a firmness that immediately changed the mood in the room. He spoke about the years of hard work he had put into rebuilding his life, the discipline he maintained not for publicity but for personal survival, and the responsibility he felt toward his family and his community. His words were no longer polished sound bites, they were raw and direct, carrying the weight of personal conviction. Instead of easing off, the conversation continued down this confrontational path. Strahan, perhaps aiming to provoke a strong reaction or simply to push for honesty, challenged Wahlberg on whether public redemption could ever truly outweigh past actions. At that point, Wahlberg's patience appeared to snap. His voice rose, not into shouting, but into a sharp, unmistakable intensity that silenced the studio. He made it clear that he was tired of being defined by the worst moments of his life, moments he had owned, apologized for, and worked tirelessly to move beyond. He spoke about the unfairness of repeatedly dragging up old mistakes while ignoring years of positive change and contribution. The exchange stunned viewers and crew alike. Morning shows are carefully scripted environments, and this kind of open confrontation is rare. Wahlberg's frustration spilled over as he questioned why interviews so often prioritized controversy over meaningful discussion. He pointed out that he had come to talk about his work, his growth as an actor and producer, and the message he hoped to convey through his projects, not to relive chapters of his life that he had already addressed countless times. The studio felt heavy with discomfort, and even Strahan appeared momentarily taken aback by the intensity of Wahlberg's response. What happened next was the moment that truly shocked audiences. Wahlberg paused, took a breath, and then made it clear that he was done. He stood up from his chair, adjusting his jacket as if preparing to leave a meeting that had gone off the rails. Without shouting or dramatic gestures, he stated firmly that he would not continue an interview that felt disrespectful and reductive. The calmness of his departure, contrasted with the emotional charge of his words, made the moment even more striking. Cameras continued rolling as he walked off the set, leaving behind an awkward silence and a visibly unsettled studio. Reactions poured in almost immediately. Some viewers praised Wahlberg for standing up for himself, arguing that he had every right to draw boundaries and refuse to be boxed into a narrative that no longer reflected who he was. They saw his walkout as an act of self-respect, a reminder that celebrities are not obligated to answer every intrusive or loaded question simply because they are in the public eye. Others criticized him, suggesting that as a public figure, he should expect tough questions and handle them without leaving the interview. To them, the walkout appeared defensive, even evasive. Media analysts dissected the exchange from every angle, debating whether the fault lay with the questioning or the response. Some argued that Strahan's role as an interviewer was to challenge guests and push beyond rehearsed answers, while others felt the line between tough journalism and unnecessary provocation had been crossed. The incident reignited broader discussions about how the media handles celebrity redemption narratives, and whether there is a point at which revisiting past mistakes becomes less about accountability and more about exploitation. For Wahlberg, the moment seemed to mark a clear assertion of control over his public image. In the days following the incident, sources close to him suggested that he felt relieved rather than regretful, believing that he had finally drawn a line he should have drawn long ago. He continued to promote his project through other platforms, where the focus remained on his work rather than his past. The walkout, rather than damaging his career, only added another layer to his complex public persona. Ultimately, the clash served as a reminder that live television, despite its polished exterior, is still unpredictable. When strong personalities, unresolved histories, and high expectations collide, even the most controlled environments can erupt into moments of raw honesty. Whether viewed as an overreaction or a justified stand, Mark Wahlberg's exit from the interview left a lasting impression, highlighting the ongoing tension between public curiosity and personal boundaries in the world of celebrity media. The interview was meant to be routine, another stop on a tightly scheduled media tour designed to keep things upbeat, controlled, and promotional. The Good Morning America set was glowing with its usual early morning warmth, the host smiling, the cameras perfectly positioned, and the conversation initially flowing with the practiced ease audiences expect. Mark Wahlberg arrived composed and professional, clearly prepared to discuss his latest work, his evolving career, and the disciplined lifestyle he often speaks about. For the first few minutes, everything appeared to be unfolding exactly as planned, yet beneath the surface there was a subtle friction that slowly began to rise. Michael Strahan's early questions focused on Wahlberg's longevity in Hollywood and his ability to reinvent himself across genres, from gritty dramas to mainstream blockbusters. Wahlberg responded smoothly, reflecting on the unpredictability of his career and the lessons he had learned over decades in the public eye. But as the interview progressed, the tone shifted almost imperceptibly. The questions became more pointed, drifting away from film and toward Wahlberg's past. Particularly moments that have followed him like a shadow despite years of public remorse and personal reform. While Wahlberg had answered similar questions countless times before, something about the framing this time felt different, less reflective and more confrontational. Strahan began pressing on the idea of redemption, asking whether audiences should fully embrace a reformed image when the past included serious mistakes. Wahlberg paused before responding, choosing his words with care. He spoke about accountability, acknowledging that he could never erase what he had done, only work to become a better person moving forward. His tone remained calm, but his body language betrayed his discomfort. He sat straighter, his jaw tightening slightly, signaling that the conversation had entered sensitive territory. Rather than easing the tension, the exchange intensified. Strahan questioned whether Wahlberg's public narrative of discipline and faith was, at least in part, a strategic rebranding effort. That implication seemed to strike deeply. Wahlberg's response was immediate and firm. He leaned forward, his voice carrying a sharper edge as he explained that personal change is not a marketing tool but a daily struggle. He spoke about family, responsibility, and the reality that growth is often invisible, unglamorous, and misunderstood by those looking in from the outside. The studio atmosphere shifted noticeably. Crew members sensed the discomfort, and viewers watching live could feel that this was no longer a scripted segment. Wahlberg's words carried emotion, not outrage for its own sake, but the frustration of someone who felt cornered by a narrative he believed no longer defined him. He emphasized that while he accepted the consequences of his past, he refused to be reduced to it indefinitely. His voice rose slightly, not in anger but in intensity, making it clear that the conversation had crossed a personal boundary. Strahan attempted to reframe the discussion, suggesting that public figures invite scrutiny by nature of their visibility. This only deepened the divide. Wahlberg responded that visibility should not equate to perpetual judgment, especially when sincere efforts toward change are dismissed or ignored. He spoke about the emotional toll of repeatedly revisiting old wounds and how it affects not just him, but his family and those close to him. The moment felt raw, unfiltered, and deeply human, far removed from the glossy tone of morning television. Then came the moment that stunned everyone watching. Wahlberg stopped speaking, took a long breath, and stood up. There was no dramatic outburst, no shouting, just a firm resolve. He stated calmly that he would not continue an interview that felt disrespectful and dismissive of his efforts to grow. The quiet certainty in his voice made the gesture more powerful than any explosive reaction could have. As he walked off the set, the cameras lingered on the empty chair, capturing the awkward silence that followed. The immediate aftermath was a mix of shock and confusion. Strahan appeared momentarily speechless, attempting to address the audience and steer the show back on track. Social media, however, erupted within minutes. Clips of the walkout spread rapidly, with viewers fiercely divided. Supporters applauded Wahlberg for asserting his boundaries, arguing that no one, celebrity or not, should be compelled to relive their worst moments endlessly. Critics, on the other hand, accused him of avoiding accountability and reacting too defensively to legitimate questions. Media commentators weighed in throughout the day, analyzing the exchange from multiple angles. Some argued that Strahan was simply doing his job, pushing beyond surface-level answers to explore complex issues. Others felt the interview crossed into provocation, prioritizing controversy over constructive dialogue. The incident sparked broader conversations about how redemption is treated in public discourse and whether society truly allows space for change or merely demands repeated penance. For Wahlberg, the incident seemed to represent a turning point rather than a setback. Sources close to him suggested that he felt no regret about leaving the interview, believing it was necessary to protect his sense of self and personal boundaries. In subsequent appearances and statements, he remained focused on his work and message, refusing to be drawn into further debate about the walkout itself. Rather than diminishing his image, the moment added complexity to it, portraying a man unwilling to perform contrition on demand. In the end, the clash on Good Morning America became more than a viral television moment. It highlighted the fragile balance between public accountability and personal growth, between journalistic challenge and respect. It also reminded audiences that live television, despite its polished exterior, can still produce moments of genuine unpredictability. Whether seen as an overreaction or a justified stand, Mark Wahlberg's decision to walk away left a lasting impression, forcing viewers to confront uncomfortable questions about forgiveness, change, and the limits of public scrutiny.